Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 197. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. A pretty sleepy weekend overall. Pittsburgh technically has some OTA sessions today. They're voluntary and mostly for the rookies and young players. The veterans basically are allowed to depart and will be back for training camp in late July, but we have some contract terms that have been finalized and made public that we'll talk about with Darnell Washington and Nick Herbig, a general salary cap update. So plenty to discuss. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Monday. I'm running the Depot Metroplex out here in Vegas all by myself this week. I sent my wife back to Florida on Monday there. She's got a relative that's having knee surgery, and he's up there in age and is going to need a little bit of help. So she's going to be down there for a week. So I've got the onus of managing the Metroplex by myself. So it's going to be a challenging week. But the Steelers, four OTA sessions, I think, to round out the offseason. I think Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I think is what's scheduled. We'll see who talks. Imagine Mike McCarthy will talk some during the week. I know Angelico had a one-on-one with Missy Matthews that went up on Steelers.com this morning. I don't know who else we'll hear from players or whatnot. I know they had the post Nick Herbig kind of standalone press conference after his contract extension last week. It'll be interesting to see maybe if we get the same thing done with Darnell Washington. I don't think that's been. I know Darnell spoke, I think, after the practice, but before he signed sometime last week here. But look, after this week, that's it for the off-season sessions, and then obviously the team will have off until the start of training camp. So this is a big week for the team to round out the off-season program.
Put a stamp on it for sure, and for young guys to get some valuable reps before departing and coming back to training camp when the season really feels like it is beginning. I think Jerry Dulac said that tomorrow, Tuesday, is the only day of media access to practice. So we'll hear from some, I'm sure, players and coaches, well, at least players tomorrow. But I think that's going to be it for the media side of things this week.
All right. Well, all eyes are on now. Let's see if this team can get Joey Porter Jr. and or maybe Keanu Benton signed to extensions before this long break. And because, depending on who stays in town or whatnot, it might be kind of tough to accomplish over the span between now and training camp. So maybe we'll be talking about a few more contract extensions before the week is up as well, too. But we do know that Nick Herbig and Darnell Washington have signed their deals as of right now. We have finally all the details related to those as well.
Yeah, so Dave, dive on in. Tell us the details, the nitty-gritty of these contracts. We always know when they first get reported in those broad terms, the actual specifics can be a little different from what you might assume about the deal initially. So I think that applies with Herbig and Washington, and really are things that you talked about before the information came out.
Yeah. Now, look, as usual, when these things are reported by the major media, by like Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter and Jeremy Fowler and all, the guarantees are just listed as guarantees. They don't say whether or not. A lot of times they don't say whether fully guaranteed or not. And I always caution people when reading those and to wait till the real numbers come out to find out what's fully guaranteed, what's injury guaranteed. And as expected with both Nick Herbig and Darnell Washington. The only money that's fully guaranteed with either one of those two guys is indeed in 2026, and that includes a signing bonus given to each of the players. In the case of Herbig, that number was almost 20 million. It was 19.676 million was the signing bonus he was given. He has a fully guaranteed new base salary in 2026 of 1.324 million. So that makes his fully guaranteed money and his cash total for 2026 of $21 million. Now, that amount obviously isn't greater than his overall new money average, which is 25 million, because remember the 4 new years total up to $100 million with him. So the cash flow with him, as stated, 21 million in 2026. He has a base salary in 2027 of also 21 million, and thus that's how you got that 42 million number that was floated out from major media as well too. But that 21 million is guaranteed for injury only with him. So Herbig's salary cap charge, we knew it was going to increase. It all depended on the structure of how much it actually increased, and I think it was a little more than $1.5 million. And that's obviously not a huge increase overall when you look at the grand scheme of things. And it was important to remember that Herbig went into the extension with a cap charge of just under 4 million as a result of him getting the proven performance escalator raised during the offseason. So essentially what they did is they lowered that base salary down by, I think a little more than a couple of $1 million there. And then the prorated signing bonus of almost 17, obviously prorated over the 5 years of the deal. So that only resulted in, like, once again, I think a little more than a $1.5 million 2026 cap charge increase with him. Nick Herbig has roster bonuses of 7 million, 6 million, and 6 million starting in 2028, 2029, and 2030. And those are all early offseason roster bonuses at the start of those new league years in March. So the cash flow overall, 42 million after the first new year, which is 2027 with him. The Steelers did a pretty good job overall with the cash flow on him, because 23.9 million of Herbig's $100 million in new cash actually comes in the final season of the deal of 2030. So overall, I think this contract leans in favor of the Steelers as far as cash flow goes. But on top of it, though, for Herbig to get the payday that he did, the $25 million new money average, and to pocket 21 million in 2026 alone is a huge win for him, especially when he was looking at a little under 4 million overall based on the PPE raise that he was to get this offseason.
So this seems like a classic Steelers structure with the March roster bonuses, the only guaranteed money in that first year, and then injury guarantee in year 2? That's the other part of that guaranteed money? So very much a classic Steelers structure. Obviously, his cap charge is going to spike in 2027, according to OTC, 5.4 million cap number this year, over 25 million in 2027, reduces to 22.2 in 2028. What Pittsburgh's calculation, I'm sure, is the cap going up, and almost certainly, maybe that's too strong of a phrase, but very likely be paying a rookie quarterback as your starter, whether that's Howard, Aller, a draft pick. You're not going to pay a $22 million cap charge similar to what Aaron Rodgers has this year. So that's going to give Pittsburgh the flexibility to be able to absorb that cap number going up on Herbig, along with the salary cap probably going up another 20% itself.
Absolutely, and once again, you don't sign these guys obviously with the idea of cutting them 1 year later or even 2 years later. The hope is, without a doubt, that Nick Herbig plays out this thing through 2030. But the real first out opportunity for the Steelers would be after the 2027 season. That'll be the first time they really have kind of a big decision with him, because the $7 million roster bonus is due in 2028, March of 2028. He's due to earn $18 million in 2028, which is obviously the second new year added on the contract there. Obviously, unless he gets hurt or something like that or falls off the cliff, I mean, he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler through 2028, one would think. But a lot of people like to talk about early outs opportunities. 2028 would be the first opportunity, but with his age and his production and his ascension and play and what's expected with him, you hope and think and that this he'll play out this ultimately through the 2030 season. Nick Herbig also becomes a restructure candidate. Potentially, depending on if the Steelers need cap space next offseason. He's got that nice fat $21 million base salary in 2027. So if this team gets into a situation where they need cap space, Nick Herbig probably now is at the front of the line to have a restructure done on him, if indeed healthy. And once again, that only depends on whether or not the Steelers need additional salary cap space.
Just curious from your perspective, putting yourself in Herbig's shoes or Herbig's agency in their shoes, what was the motivation to get this deal done if the cash flow is a little friendlier for the team side as opposed to the player side?
Yeah, he died. I mean, he obviously wanted to stay a Steeler, but I mean, they all say that Steeler for life and all. But I mean, you look at it alone. Was scheduled to earn a little under $4 million in cash. Yeah, he could have. We talked about that he could potentially bet on himself in 2026, and then potentially, if he stays healthy, has a good season, maybe get a new money average of 30 million and perhaps even a fat payday of 30, maybe even 30, a little over $30 million in cash for 2027. But when you add that together, along with the fact that he was scheduled to earn, nearly, let's call it 4 million this year, opportunity between the 2 years of $34 million in cash potentially through next offseason, or through the 2027 league year, had he not signed an extension. But at signing this extension, he's now on schedule to earn $42 million in cash. So that's enough motivation within that and look, once again, you don't sign these guys to cut them after 1 year. And even though there is only the fully guaranteed money in 2026, there's like a 99.9% chance he's going to see the 2027 money with the Steelers as well too. So yeah, he could have bet on himself. He could have earned a fat payday with probably a higher APY next off season, and obviously a nice first year cash total for next year. But he would have had to settle for earning a little under 4 million. And so once again, you look at the potential cash flow between this year and next year at, let's even call it maybe 40 million at most if things really went well for Nick Herbig in 2026. Now he's already signed a deal that's going to put 21 million in his pocket this year and 42 million through next year. So that's the motivation.
All right. Yeah, I understand it. And I can appreciate a guy that says, you know what, I like where I'm at. Let's get paid now. It may not be the most ideal contract, but it is still a life-changing amount of money, and to stay in the same place and potentially be there long-term with his really good friend Keanu Benton, if the Steelers can work out an extension with Benton before the season begins. Just one last thought, one little quirk here. I'm looking it over the cap because they were the first, I think, to report the numbers on the Herbig contract and give all the details, they have Herbig as an off-ball linebacker. So they're considering him the number one highest paid off-ball linebacker. Obviously, that's incorrect. He's an edge rusher. I think he's, 12th overall? Is 12th overall? What is his APY for edge rushers? I'm not entirely sure top of my head, but maybe just a little misclassification on Herbig on Over the Cap site.
Yeah, and they've had him categorized. I probably will get with one of the guys that work with them at Over the Cap and keep that updated to tell them that they have him misclassified there. And once again, if you look at his APY compared to the other edge rushers overall, his $25 million puts him right between, I think, Nick Benito and Montez Sweat at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I think that makes him 16th highest paid.
Yeah, it was Darnell that was 12th for tight ends.
Right. Over there. So yeah, they have him misclassified as and have for a while. They just have listed him as a linebacker and not an edge rusher. So I'll see if I can get on them to get them to move that.
Dave, we've not heard this sound in a little bit, and this is not directly Steelers related, but can you give us a breaking news little doot? According to Pete Thamel of ESPN, College Football Insider, he says, news: a judge in district court in Lubbock County, Texas, has granted the injunction request by Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby. He's set to be eligible for the 2026 season. So barring some sort of reversal in a higher court, don't ask me what are the odds of that and that whole process playing out, Sorsby will be allowed to play for the Red Raiders in 2026 after the NCAA denied his bid that was going to potentially push him to the supplemental draft.
Well, good for him, and hopefully that sticks for him, and hopefully he can straighten out, some of the issues he's had with the gambling or whatnot. Can go back and have a good season and put himself in contention to be a first round draft pick. We'll see how. You kind of wondered if this is the way that was going to turn out overall after enough courts had been petition and all like that. I'm no legal expert, much to the disappointment of my parents, but I have a feeling that this will potentially stick here. And I'm all look. The kid made some mistakes there, and yeah, you could make an argument that they should not grant him the eligibility and just send him on his way to the supplemental draft. But I always root for these kids to overcome issues and all, and hopefully that's the case here. And hopefully he goes back and has a strong season, puts himself in solid contention to be a first round draft pick next year. So we'll see if this sticks. I know the supplemental draft's coming up real quick, so this will have to get finalized one way or the other. But I have a feeling that this latest report means that he's going to be eligible to play in college. So we'll see.
I'm certainly no fan of how the NCAA generally conducts business, but it's pretty crazy a guy can gamble obsessively on the sport and potentially face zero punishment at all. I don't know what kind of precedent that's going to set. That seems pretty dangerous and slippery slope. Now, I don't know if the NCAA could still impose some sort of punishment and suspend him for, say, half the season, or if this is going to be just carte blanche, go and step in week one and you're good to go to get back on the field. And I don't know if it's going to be an appeals court process, but that is kind of crazy if this guy can face essentially zero real on-field consequences to a giant gambling scandal. Now, I know that there was still speculation about if he did go supplemental draft, would Pittsburgh have interest? I really doubt they would have submitted a pick on Brendan Sorsby, but that all appears to be tracking towards moot as he'll return and potentially try to become a key member of the 27 class, although whenever he does come out to the draft, obviously the gambling scandal will be top of mind for NFL front offices.
All right, we'll obviously monitor that the this coming week to see if anything changes there on him. You had me worried there that maybe I was missing some extension news here. So, but Brandon Sorsby is the topic right now with the supplemental draft right around the corner here. All right, shall we talk? Do you have any more questions about the Nick Herbig extension and all? I think it's pretty cut and dry as expected. expected. And once again, the fully guaranteed money is in 2026, and the $21 million base salary in 2027 is injury guaranteed, and he is all signed, sealed, and delivered and ready to roll.
You laid it out well, and that's basically what you said, that the initial reports of guarantee, about half of that was going to be for, injury guarantee, and that's basically what had happened here. And also, I should note, at least we forgot to mention this top of the show, we're not going to do a live stream tonight to get us back on schedule after skipping 2 weeks ago and doing one last week. We'll be back, I think, for this upcoming Monday, but nothing else on Herbig, Dave Bryan Esquire. Let's go to Darnell Washington and what the contract terms of his 4-year extension looks like.
All right. As we had talked the other day, his new money average is $10.5 million as part of him getting $42 million in new money over the course of the 4 new years added on to 2026. His contract runs through 2030, much like Nick Herbig's does. Once again, in his situation, even though there was I think, what was the total that was put out there with guarantees with him? 20 something million, I think. Well, what ended up?
It was 21.
Okay, I think it was 21 that was reported there. He received a signing bonus of $10 million to go along with a new base salary in 2026 that is fully guaranteed of $1.25 million. That brings his cash total and fully guaranteed money for 2026 to $11.25 million, which is kind of what I theorized close to after it was announced that he was signing the extension with $42 million in new money. Let's see, his $9 million base salary in 2027 is guaranteed for injury only. He also has 4 annual offseason workout bonuses beginning in 2027, all equaling $300,000 each. Those are not guaranteed at all. He obviously has to report during the off season to qualify for those. And he, much like Nick Herbig, he has roster bonuses in the final 3 years of the deal, 2028 through 2030, of $2.5 million each. And much like Nick Herbig, those are due early on in March of the new league years. But once again, those do not start until 2028. So if you look at the cash flow for him, once again, $11.25 million in 2026. You add on $9.3 million of what he can earn through additional 2027 of base salary and workout bonus, and that brings the total to, I think, 20.55 million that Darnell Washington is scheduled to earn through 2027. Now, with his cap number, and as I posted on Twitter after we kind of knew the initial early reporting of the deal, it was not going to be unlikely at all to see Darnell Washington's 2026 cap number actually decrease. Like Nick Herbig, he was already on the books for a nearly $4 million base salary in 2026 as a result of the proven performance escalator raise that he had earned. So what they did is took his base salary down to $1.25 million, and then you take the $10 million in bonus proration and prorate that out over 5 years. He had remaining proration in 2026 of $223,438 from his original rookie signing bonus that stays in 2026. That brings his new cap charge for 2026 to almost $3.5 million. So as a result of all this, his cap charge actually decreased by a little more than $400,000 in 2026 with this. So Once again, you had Herbig's cap charge increased by around what 1.5 something million, and you had Washington's actually decreased by a little over 400,000. So to get both of these guys signed to long-term 4-year extensions, you only used up a little bit more than what $1.1 million in available salary cap space. So the kind of the note when it comes to cash flow, nice cash flow overall, I think, with Darnell Washington here. The fact that once again he's going to earn 20.35 million in cash through the first new year of the deal, which is 2027, and his new money total, obviously for the 4 new years, was 42 million overall. I mean, look, you're talking about a guy that is going to get 11.25 million this year, as opposed to he was originally scheduled to earn a little under 4 million. That's quite a pay raise for him, and much like Herbig, you don't sign these guys thinking that you're going to have to cut them after 1 year. 2028, much like Herbig, becomes the first more optimum out year if you needed to, because that's when the first roster bonus is due in 2.5 million. He could become a secondary restructure candidate after Herbig next offseason in the event that we get to that year, and the Steelers for whatever reason might need some salary cap space, although you're not going to probably save all that much with him. Of course, not anywhere close that you would save with the Herbig extension. I think a little over 6 million, almost 6.1 million, should they have to restructure his contract next offseason if they needed additional cap space. This far out, it's hard to judge whether a team's going to have to restructure a year out or not. But once again, I would expect them to go to Herbig first before even thinking about touching Washington's contract there. So pretty cut and dry Steelers type structures with both Herbig and Washington. The big notes here, obviously, that you only use 1.1, a little more than 1.1 million in available salary cap space to get both these guys locked up. And I think this is a good deal for both the player and the Steelers when it comes to looking at these overall deals. And once again, the big factor that we talked a little bit about the other day about Nick Herbig in particular here is you got 4 additional years added on to these deals, and it was a little bit surprising with the Washington deal as well too, that normally you see these deals with APYs under 15 or under 14. Normally those like 2-year extensions, but they were able to get this done. Now they have control of him for 4 more seasons on top of 2026. So I don't think, based at least on the initial reporting of both the amounts and guaranteed, other than what was guaranteed, fully guaranteed and injury guaranteed, there's not a lot of big surprises in these deals overall.
If you had to say who got a quote unquote better deal or grade these deals from, I guess you could do it from the team standpoint or the player standpoint, whatever makes more sense for you. How would you assess these contracts of Washington and Herbig now that all the details are known?
I think of the two, Washington, I mean, obviously Herbig got more money,
Sure.
but
Just from the
yeah,
structure standpoint,
right.
expectation standpoint.
I think Washington maybe did a slightly better as far as cash flow goes within this. You look at his final year of his deal, 8.20. Let's see, there's 2.8. 9 million, I think, of the final year of his deal, on a deal that has a 10.5 APY new money average, comes in the final year, whereas we talked about Herbig's cash in his final year was percentage wise, probably more favors the Steelers within that. So I think overall, but on the flip side too, even though Washington's cash flow maybe at the top looks a little bit better, he is obligated to this team 4 more years on top of it. So kind of a trade-off there that he probably had to give up, 2 additional years of control to the Steelers to get a little bit stronger cash flow at the beginning of this thing as well too. So I think we're kind of splitting minuteness here, if you will. But if push comes to shove, I think Washington did a little bit better for himself as far as cash flow early in the deal goes. But obviously, the Steelers get into control for 4 additional years. And I think with Herbig, I think as we look just in general overall, even though the cash flow probably isn't as strong percentage wise early in the year, early in the deal. Once again, the fact that at best case scenario, was he looking at, let's say, $33 million in cash next offseason as part of the deal of market value, assuming he was the top prize and getting well over $30 million APY. Let's go ahead and say that was a $34 million at best cash number for him next offseason, and the fact that he was only going to earn not even $4 million this year. I mean, that's $38 million over the course of 2026 and 2027, whereas now he's scheduled to earn $42 million. So why wouldn't you? Why would you take that risk, especially if it's a team that you want to play for, you want to stay in Pittsburgh, and you much rather get a deal done now? And yeah, he probably gave up a little cash flow within that, but once again, it's 99.8% chance that he's going to see the first 3 years of this deal automatically here, barring significant injury, and even significant injury this season would result in him seeing that 2027 money. So there's pros and cons with each, but you can definitely see why it was an attractive deal to Herbig, and then because of kind of the little discounted cash flow early in the deal, you can see why it was good for the Steelers.
Yeah, understood. So appreciate the analysis there and the level-headedness to kind of walk us through these deals. I think the overall thought is whether it's a little better for Washington or Herbig, these are very much classic Steelers type of contracts and structure and overall just the way that they're formatted. And so Pittsburgh staying true from that standpoint.
Yeah, now look, when we get into it, we'll obviously see what happens here with Joey Porter Jr. And we talked about potential fully guaranteed money through the first new year of the deal, which in his case would be 2027. And we'll look at the cash flow. And obviously you're looking at more top end of the market in that situation, and those kind of things of what the previous guy got are taken into consideration. But on top of it, we talked too about Herbig and potentially the franchise tag, the threat of the franchise tag for the next couple of years being a part of a weapon that the Steelers will use to negotiate in this, and the fact that Porter also was set to have or is currently set to have a base salary charge in 2026 of not even $4 million, because like the other two, he had qualified for the proven performance escalator. It'll be interesting to see how this comes out. And once again, I don't know if this is going to happen 15 minutes after we get off the podcast, or are we going to be sitting around for the last week of preseason waiting for this to get done. All I can state at this point is I'm 100% confident they will get Joey Porter Jr. done. I would like to think personally that the holdup within this is potentially fully guaranteed money, and how much of it potentially rolls into 2027. But I have been wrong before on these kind of things, so we'll just have to let it play out. But I am confident they will get something done with it, and then after the smoke clears, we'll go through it and talk a little bit about cash flow and fully guarantees and what he stood to earn had he not signed a deal versus the franchise tag and yada yada.
And for whatever it's worth, Jared Dulac reporting the Steelers and Porter have not engaged in serious contract talks yet. Doesn't mean that they can't or won't, or those things can't spark quickly, but reportedly they've not really talked too in-depth yet, which makes sense when you're handling talks with Herbig in Washington. You can't talk to everyone super nitty-gritty up front. You want to get these deals done with Herbig Washington early to do maybe a little more, I don't want to say complicated deal, but a different type of deal with the guaranteed money in all likelihood with Porter. And so that's where things seemingly stand.
All right, now this is the last week of OTAs also. So, and look, I think Porter, I don't know how much traveling Porter does during the offseason, but he I would think that he generally stays in Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right. Now he may not be at OTAs because it seems like it's more for the
right,
rookies and young, first year type players. But I mean, obviously the phone works, and Omar Khan and Paul
sure,
Marco can talk to Porter's agent. Who is Porter's
right.
agent, by the way? Is he have the same agent as one of these other guys that got a deal done? Do
You
we know
know
his
what? I
agency?
don't know, but I can find out.
Or is it Rosenhaus, or who is
Let me see who his
according to Spot
agent.
Track, it's Andre Odom from Athletes First.
Okay, and Athletes First, obviously a reputable, larger outfit as far as representation goes. So they know the game. This isn't their first
Sure.
time around the block and all like that. I would just say that if they did not get a deal, an extension done with him this week, the odds obviously increase that maybe we're waiting until closer to the start of training camp to get it done. But I'm trying to remember the last time that we saw a lucrative extension done by the Steelers after the offseason program ended and the start of training camp.
When did Minka get his deal? And Watt got his last July before training camp too, even though it came after Garrett, after the market kind of got really hot.
Right. What Minka's kind of early in the offseason though, or at least during
It,
the
it was
during
it
the
was before camp. I don't remember where exactly it fit in the timeline of before or after mandatory minicamp, etc. Looks like June 15th they signed his 4-year extension, so I assume that was after mandatory minicamp.
Okay,
Or right
so
around there.
using that as an example, not there's no rules that say that
Sure.
once off-season program ends that you can't sign it. And look, all these same rules obviously roll over to guys like Benton as well too. So we'll have to see maybe if they can get him done. And as we pointed out the other day, it feels kind of obvious that Omar Khan's wanting to get most of these knocked out before the start of training camp. And even if this thing does roll into training camp with Joey Porter Jr., you would obviously expect a quote unquote hold in to happen. But, even as we saw a couple of years ago with Watt and Deontay Johnson, I wouldn't expect it to roll too far along into training camp if indeed we get to that point and a guy like Joey Porter Jr. hasn't signed an extension yet.
Well, Watt on his first contract, that took until the last second. Remember, it was him, I think, and Nick Bosa. Was it him and Bosa the same year? I forget. But whatever the case was, Watt's that first deal took until the 11th hour. And with a new coaching staff, the more reps you miss after really doing seemingly nothing during spring work, the more potential there is for negativity with Porter. And so there's a little, I think, extra urgency to get this done because it is a new coaching staff and they want to get him on the field and he wants to get out there to get those reps in.
All right, a couple other contract notes here. If you have no further questions about Washington and Porter situation and all, this team recently signed Robert Tonyan and who was the other one?
Jamin
Yeah,
Davis.
Jamin Davis to 1-year veteran benefit contract deals. No signing bonuses were given to either of those two guys. Both those guys now hit at discounted salary cap hit of 1.075 million. Neither one of those players impacted the rule of 51, so no additional salary cap space was used to sign either one of those two players. As we sit here currently on June the 8th, Monday, this team in real time is 5.955 million and some change under the cap at this point. Obviously, when you look ahead at some of the other potential forthcoming cap charges that crop up, most of which happen closer to the start of the regular season, this team is essentially $10 million over the cap or close to at this point. But if we're dealing in real time numbers, they're almost $6 million under the cap. That $6 million under, at least in real time, should be enough to get guys like Drew Aller signed to his rookie contract, and whatever kind of increase there might be in a Joey Porter Jr. 2026 salary cap charge, and really Benton for that matter as well. They should be able to accommodate extensions for both those guys without having to early offseason restructure of, say, DK Metcalf. Now, I'm not saying that they could just say, hey, we're going to need the DK Metcalf or a restructure at some point. Why not do it early? If you had your druthers, you'd like to get these guys through a healthy training camp and all before restructuring them, if just to be on the safe side. So once again, I still expect a restructure to have to happen at some point this offseason. My bet would be on Metcalf to get done, but in the short term, $6 million is pretty significant amount of salary cap space to work with, even though that this team could still sign Porter and Benton to contract extensions as early as right now here. So that's the update of where this team sits cap wise. And we're waiting. Drew Aller will get signed at some point here before the start of training camp, and then all eyes will be on Benton and Porter, whether or not they get those guys signed by the start of training camp to extensions.
So you guys can check out the site. It's sticky top of the page on Steelers Depot with Dave's latest update. And the next update would probably come only until a new deal happens or a Metcalf restructure. That's likely the next line in the sand in terms of the future update.
Yeah, we've got once again, we'll see what happens, how long it takes Aller to get signed. And, obviously if Porter or Benton gets done, that'll be significant news to have to update on. So anytime anything moves significantly, I'll do an update on that. So who knows, by the end of this week, potentially we could have another update.
Even if Aller gets signed, because isn't that already baked into the cake of your cap projections, his contract?
Yeah, but a lot of people want
Okay.
real time. They want to know exactly where they're at. So we'll just play it by ear.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Some other odds and ends, and just one last update on the Brendan Sorsby situation. He'll be serving a 2-game suspension to start 2026 per the judge in the ruling, meaning he'll miss games against Abilene Christian and Oregon State. I think Texas Tech will take that trade-off. So pretty wild story there, but the main takeaway for Pittsburgh's purposes, there is no decision to make, although again, I don't think they would have put in a bid on Sorsby. It would have been very interesting, though, to see where he would have gone, what draft pick would have been used on him. Tony Pauline last week said expect a first, potentially second-round pick on Sorsby from some NFL team. A lot of pushback on that. We'll never find out what the answer ultimately would have been.
All that useless speculation, all to the wayside potentially here.
The system is working as intended. Darnell Savage had an interview in the Trib on Sunday and unfortunately did not provide any clarity on why it took 3 months for him to officially sign. Said there were some things he had to handle before officially inking his contract that was first reported back in March. Would make sense. It was something medical related, but we just don't know exactly what it is. And Savage not expounding on why there was such a wait.
All right. And once again, he impacted the rule of 51 with his deal because there was a $187,500 signing bonus as part of the veteran benefit contract with him. So, but that obviously the signing bonus was the only fully guaranteed money in the deal. So now we'll see if he can potentially win a roster spot as we get deeper into the summer.
And this was such a small story, I didn't even devote an article to it, despite how sleepy of a day it was on Sunday. But I know there was a clip from 93.7 The Fan showing quarterbacks, all Pittsburgh's quarterbacks going through a footwork drill during a recent practice of minicamp. And Mason Rudolph, a lot of people thinking Rudolph was shorting a drill because he didn't go through the whole drill over the bags like the other quarterbacks, didn't roll out and throw the football, just kind of went through a drop, stepped up in the pocket and threw the ball. Appears he's probably got a minor injury, had a sleeve on his right leg. And so typically when the guys have a minor pull, it isn't preventing them from practicing entirely. They're going to shift the drill a little bit to keep those guys healthy. You don't need to make anything worse here during the spring. And so this happened with Russell Wilson in 2024 training camp as he was getting back from his calf injury. And so maybe something very minor there with Rudolph, but he was not cheating the drill. It wasn't because he doesn't care. I know the internet getting their cheap internet points about that. It's just structure of a guy with a minor injury and keeping him healthy for the spring and the summer.
All right. Good eagle eye by you on that.
All right, Dave, let's kind of keep in vogue with our stats and things that need to change in 2026. We talked about the offensive stats that must change. Same with the defense this weekend. I wrote about 3 special team stats that must change this year under a new coordinator in Danny Crossman. And one of them is one I sound like a broken record on, so I'll keep it very short. Kick return averaged 24.2 yards last year. Pittsburgh finished, that was 28th league-wide, so they've been very poor in the kick return game. Hopefully, rookie Keaton Legion can rectify that, but of course the blocking has to be there, the scheme must be there, and Pittsburgh overall, the results must be there in 26.
Yeah, you got to put your Weegian in there. A lot of people won't get that, but Weegian, you draft this guy in the 4th round like you did, and obviously the career that he had at Iowa as a return man led to that. This is a special teams unit that we've talked several times, even before the draft, of how they got to get better, and that's why we dedicated to wondering if this team would potentially draft one of the better returners in this year's draft class, and they got the best one in Weegian as well too. You really, for this is every year in the NFL. It's a 3-phase operation here where you need contributions out of all 3 phases. But when you look at the Steelers specifically, and I think we could see the defense have a significant improvement over 2025. The offense, I'm not as convinced if there is an improvement that it would be as significant as potentially the defensive side of football. But look, we talk about hidden yardage and aspects of where this return game has been over the last several years. Man, guys like Weegian and in both the kick and punt return game can make significant impacts, because even you look at punt return, increasing the average slightly in the punt return game and in the kick return game as well too. Those extra hidden yardage where offenses start drives could end up going a long way to helping this team score a few more times, whether it be touchdowns or field goals on drives. So we have definitely I'm with you. Number one, kick return. I understand. Look, we're hoping we're not seeing the Steelers have to return a lot of kicks this year overall, except maybe at start of games or at the beginning of halves and all. But when the opportunity does present themselves, a lot of people are going to have their eyes on what this kickoff return team does, especially now that they've invested a mid-round draft pick in Weegian.
And as I mentioned before, Pittsburgh no kick return touchdown since 2017. Would love to break that streak and that drought this year. I think Legion has the potential, but we shall see. My next stat that must change, which you sort of mentioned here in the punt return game, they were a little better in terms of their average, although it wasn't great, 8.8 yards, which was 21st overall last year, but a long of 25, which was tied for 23rd, their longest punt return by not Calvin Austin, but Scotty Miller had one in week 17. I think that was late in the game, I want to say, maybe that last drive. Miller had set up a Pittsburgh in good field position, but they couldn't cash in. Obviously, in that goal line failure, but yeah, long punt return to 25. Austin's longest return was just 12 yards last year. And so you want to get maybe 1 or 2 field flipping plays, because those things can really correlate to winning the game.
Boy, I'd like to see about 6 or 8 of them.
Sign me up.
But Weegian obviously going to be a huge factor within that as well too. This obviously coincides with number one that you have was kick return average. So we will definitely be monitoring that right out of the chute when it comes to the overall return game for this team, and they do indeed have to be better in both those categories in 2026.
And the third one, penalties, 23 penalties on special teams last year. That was most of any AFC North team. Baltimore 22, the Bengals 16, Cleveland just 11. Only the Patriots, Bills, Titans, and Raiders had more in the AFC last year. And so I want to see some fewer flags on Pittsburgh's special teams units this year, Dave.
Yeah, and boy, definitely be a hit to the knees if you see those and they wipe out a good return, as a result of it. So I didn't. I'm glad that you have those numbers. Where do they rank league wide in penalties, did you say?
I didn't pull league wide because I had to click through every single team to do it. I didn't have a place for the entire league wide, but that would have been, like I said, in the AFC, only the Patriots, Bills, Titans, and Raiders were worse, and the Chiefs also at 23. So it was, bottom five in the conference.
All right, and obviously a lot of those either be holdings or block in the back type of penalties there.
So, yeah, I know that it was up and down under Danny Smith. I think 2 years ago they were good without the penalties. Last year it was more of a problem. Crossman's units, I think in Miami his last year, they were pretty highly penalized, and so certainly no guarantee it gets fixed. And obviously, one or two penalties can skew things here, and one block in the back can change a whole lot. Hopefully that does not negate. I think Pittsburgh had a couple of good returns. I think last year that were negated by penalties on punts last year. I can remember. So want to reduce the number of flags, no question about that. So we'll see who the replacement is for Darius Swinton II. Still no word on that. Maybe Pittsburgh will be going through that process this week and try to get a hire in, but so far it's just Crossman still.
All right, let's see. I know you only went 3 deep within this, but when you look at kind of big plays, whether it be blocked punt or forced fumble, or say on a kickoff or a punt return and all, it would be could be beneficial to see these special teams units get that ball out a few times in kind of a not normal fashion, if you will. Let's see. Last year there was looking at the regular season, I think they had one forced fumble by special teams units, and I believe that was Kenneth Gainwell
In the opener and against the Jets, was it
in
not?
the opener, yeah, week 1 there. They had 2 fumble recoveries on special teams last year. Juan Thornhill was one of those I think that was week 1 as well too. And who had the other fumble
Was that Pittsburgh
recovery?
recovering their own fumble? I feel like that's
It might
probably
have
where that would
been
have come from.
Brandon Eccles was listed in week 9 as a fumble recovery, so maybe that was an own fumble that recovered. I don't think they had any blocked punts, at least none that they recovered last year.
No, none that were officially blocked. I'm trying to think if they deflected one, because the NFL is a little weird. If it's blocked, but it still goes past the line of scrimmage, it does not get recognized as
Right.
a true block. It just goes down as a regular punt. It has to be behind the line of scrimmage. No, I don't believe they had a full block last year, and they were really good 2 years ago, blocking kicks and punts, and
Mhm.
I think teams started to adjust. I think the NFL as a whole last year, they were blocking a ton of field goals early, and then they kind of all fixed it. And I know Pittsburgh had their own. They had a couple kicks blocked. Boss had one in Dublin, I think another one later in the season, maybe against the Bengals, I want to say. So not getting your kicks blocked will be a mission for Pittsburgh under Danny Crossman.
Absolutely. It'd be nice to see maybe get a short field or two during the season, uh, because of something like that.
All right, so that is the aim for Pittsburgh special teams. Dave, I don't want to spend much time on it, but it has become a talking point because it is the dead part of the offseason. I know that the beat guys on KDKA last night were discussing it briefly as well. Baker Mayfield, contract year, said there's not been any real big momentum on contract talks in Tampa Bay. He has a self-imposed deadline of he doesn't want to talk contract. I think at the start of training camp, I believe is his deadline. And so some wondering if Baker Mayfield does become a free agent next year. Would Pittsburgh have interest given their murky future quarterback situation? Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, it's so far out right now. It makes it kind of hard to look that far ahead. I mean, Mike McCarthy's job is to find this team the next franchise quarterback. Hopefully, we're not constantly talking about another offseason of maybe a potential veteran quarterback coming in to lead this team like we have the last several. I understand uh, why that's being thrown out there this early, but to me, I mean, I want to get through the 2026 season right now, and we'll see if any of these young quarterbacks can end up getting any playing time whatsoever. We'll obviously be watching a draft class and how that materializes, and if the Steelers potentially have a shot at any one of those guys. But I personally, I mean, I understand once again why some of this is coming to. And look, I mean, Mayfield might end up even getting an extension this offseason, becomes a moot point overall there. But my own personal want is for the Steelers to finally get off of this train
Mm.
of you know older veteran quarterbacks, winding down their career for one or two more seasons in Pittsburgh as they continue to find their own franchise quarterback.
That's my general feeling, and I think there's certainly a good chance that an extension does happen before training camp. A lot of posturing right now, deadlines for action, etc. And so this may all become moot, as you said. But Baker certainly turned his career around. Obviously, in Cleveland, had some highs and lows, but just too turnover prone. And I just think with his play style of that, and you love him for it in a sense because he's an all out kind of a guy, tough dude, will take a hit, but as he gets older, as mobility starts to degrade, the hits pile up, the injuries pile up. Just not the guy I'm going to take the chance on and have to pay good money for.
I agree.
Last thing I have here, Dave, I wrote about this Sunday. The tight end battle is heating up. We talked about really pre-draft, this team not having much tight end depth behind Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth. And then you have Riley Nowakowski. He's going to work in a fullback tight end role. You had Robert Tonyan. You have Blake McCree, the undrafted free agent. You had Jaheim Bell. And so even though it's not the most exciting battle and maybe not the highest quality battle in the world, I'm really interested to see this tight end battle for that third spot shake out in training camp.
Look, adding Tonyan, as we talked the other day, you could do a lot worse to add a veteran guy like that on the cheap, especially one that is familiar with Mike McCarthy and Angelico and obviously Aaron Rodgers. He's for his age, and at least what we saw in limited playing time last year with the Chiefs, specifically as a blocker. I think Tonyan still has a little something left in him. Not a guy I don't think that you want to have to rely on 800 snaps for along those lines. And then you obviously have Nowakowski was drafted by this team, kind of a quasi tight end slash fullback slash H-back slash guy that you can line up in the slot there. Nowakowski also help you out on special teams. Tonyan has some special teams capabilities as well too. If all these guys can stay healthy, like we talked about the other day, and knock on wood, if all four of those top four guys or seemingly top four guys can stay healthy, the Steelers could find themselves with some very interesting decision, especially when it comes to a guy like Tonyan. I think at least initially I would consider Tonyan outside the roster bubble right now, but things can change in a hurry with an injury, even if it isn't significant to be a season-ending injury. Say one of these guys has to start the regular season for whatever reason on IR. At least you got a guy that you could turn to in Tonyan. We have talked about different ways that the Steelers might have to go a little light at some of these positions to maybe to be able to make a spot. Who knows? Fourth quarterback, Heidenreich. Go through a fourth tight end. Maybe only are they going to carry 7 defensive linemen? So it is the single best factor out of all this is the fact that we are talking about there potentially being a nice back end of the tight end depth chart battle as training camp rolls on here, that they have serious candidates to be the number 3 and number 4, and then we'll just wait to see how this stuff works its way out through the wash year, injuries and performance and otherwise. But Nowakowski was drafted high enough, 5th round, that you really would be a bit surprised if he didn't make the 53-man roster. Obviously, Washington and Freiermuth are going to be there. I guess it just becomes, does Tonyan offer you enough to warrant maybe keeping a 4th tight end, and where would you go light maybe elsewhere on the 53-man roster? As this roster sits right now, 91 man, once again, if everybody stays healthy, there's going to be some tough decisions, I think, when you get down to organizing the final 53 and who potentially gets a helmet, who's active, who's inactive, how's that going to play into it at the start of the season as well too. So it's a good problem to have that we're talking
Mhm.
about. The tight end depth chart got a little better last week, I think.
Yeah, it's what you're looking for, and I'm happy to see at least some names get added to that mix and the group at least become better, and hopefully competition will rise that talent to the top, and the best man will win. The question really will be, can Nowakowski serve both roles as tight end, fullback, or does his team want an additional player on top of that for more personnel flexibility? That'll be, I think, one big question this summer.
Mhm.
All right, so just to clean up one very minor thing with the fumble recoveries last year, Eccles actually recovered a muff punt by Josh Downs in that Colts game. It's
Ah,
one of those many turnovers. Uh, Thornhill recovered Pittsburgh's own fumble when Caleb Johnson fumbled in the opener last year. The week before that, Seattle gaff, and then Skoranek was credited for a fumble recovery that Gainwell forced in that Jets game
that's
that you
right.
referenced, and so that's where all of that happened. So I guess 3 fumble recoveries on special teams, 2 as turnovers, 1 Pittsburgh recovering their own, just because I know we probably already have an email about that, so just getting that out of the way. All right, Dave, that's all I had. Any other final thoughts or any other breaking news? Feel free. If not, we can get to some reader emails. Also, we have Steelers Depot Jeopardy Season 2, Episode 1 dropping later today on YouTube and on the site, so you guys can check that out.
All right, that should be entertaining. People should enjoy tuning in to that. So a lot of great questions within that as well too. All right, yeah, I think we got through everything here. Let's get to a couple of reader emails before we get out of here. Or listener emails. Dean DeValia back in here. Want to respond to your question about possibly trading Watt or Highsmith by revisiting a trade question I asked just prior to the beginning of the new league year. He says, I suggested a trade between the Steelers and the 49ers. Watt for Mac Jones, with Pittsburgh having to eat a portion of the Watt contract. Given the trade of Myles Garrett to the Rams and the new contract for Herbig, should we consider that? Should we consider that idea? The Niners, a team in win now mode, having to face a vaunted Seattle D and a Rams defense that just got a lot scarier with Garrett twice respectively, might be feeling a need to keep up with the Joneses, no pun intended. He says, hypothetically, Khan calls Lynch and offers Watt and Rudolph for Jones in a third round pick straight up. Would you be interested if Lynch agreed? He says, to me, makes sense for a number of reasons, and he lists too long to read off a lot of these reasons here. First and foremost, Dean, I think it's important. The 49ers just did something to the contract of Mac Jones as well too, didn't they?
It was a small rework, I believe, of additional incentives, I wanna say, but it was not
Yeah.
anything significant to that deal. I think the major issue with that proposal is Aaron Rodgers is back, and so I don't know what Mac Jones, his purpose would be on an expiring contract to be a number 2, so I don't know what the incentive for Pittsburgh would be.
Yeah, especially I think Mac. Yeah, I don't think they added any years or anything
No.
to
I mean, I can look it up if
Mac
you want the
Jones.
the details, but it was just a
Yeah,
small contract rework is my recollection of it.
yeah, he's his contract still voids after the 2026 season and all. So you would
There's
be
a $300,000 roster bonus in his
okay.
deal.
All right. So if let's assume everything as he stated, you made the trade and all like that. You would only be you would once you'd be in the same situation that you're really technically in with Mason Rudolph right now. Is the fact that you have a quarterback that contract expires after 2026, and Mac Jones would be absolutely foolish. If he was traded to, say, a team like the Steelers to sign a super cheap extension, knowing that he could potentially be, uh, a guy everybody goes after, or a lot of teams go. He could be, the Malik Willis, I guess, for lack of the better word, next offseason if he got in there for whatever reason. Brock Purdy got hurt in 2026, and Mac. I thought Mac overall helped his resume last year after Brock Purdy went down as well too. So and look, the player obviously doesn't have a say, assuming he doesn't have a no trade clause and all like that. But I did, like Alex said, you got Aaron Rodgers back now. You obviously have a couple of young quarterbacks that you're trying to develop here, acquiring Mac Jones and turning around and him being a free agent next offseason doesn't really help you that way. I mean, I suppose you could at least give you the rights to go to franchise tag with him, but I wouldn't see that as a legitimate option unless Mac Jones was able to play a lot in 2026 for the Steelers due to an Aaron Rodgers injury. None of it adds up right now at this point. I understand the direction that Dean is coming at here, but with Rodgers, a lot of what Alex said with Rodgers back, and look, the fact that the Steelers don't have to trade Watt right now either, plays into that. The expectation at this point is for Watt not to be traded. I mean, we're into highly speculation type, hypothetical type situations that probably have a 99.2% chance of not even coming to fruition.
I like the 99.2. So 0.8, you're saying there's a chance is the headline I think we're going to write. I guess the upside would be you're clearing money, you're clearing this contract in future years especially, and you're getting a third-round pick next year, but just does not make sense for Pittsburgh to do that deal with Rodgers returning.
All right, let me see if I don't think there's much of anything else in here right now, Alex, and we are about an hour, and I'm having to man the Depot Metroplex by myself, so I think...
Who's your pick tonight, Knicks and Spurs? Who you got? New York up 2-0.
Yeah, I think you and I just briefly talked to who we thought would win the series. I don't think we put it out on the podcast here, but I think we both had the Knicks there. I think the Knicks, just the three their three nucleus is better than how do you pronounce the last name?
Wembanyama.
Yeah, he's a talented guy. He's a guy that you definitely root for. He's got a great attitude and all like that. I don't follow NBA close enough. It's the last of the major sports that I follow. But I did watch the end of the game the other night that the Knicks ended up pulling out there. Down 2-0 is just a tough hole, regardless of whatever series. I tell you, the series is the Stanley Cup has been absolutely fantastic.
What's the buzz in Vegas like right now? What's that?
Obviously they dodged a huge bullet. I mean, personally, if they would have lost that game the other night, I don't know if that's something that you come back from, especially because they had game 2 in hand and then let Carolina come back and win that one in overtime. Man, if you had let a team to come back, especially that you were up 4-0 in a game at home, and if you had let Carolina come back and win that in overtime the other night, that's a double kick to the nuts, if you will. And I think Vegas is the better team, but I think Carolina showed a lot of heart. And there would have been 2 storylines to that. It would have been it have been listed as both a hell of a comeback by Carolina and a hell of a collapse by Vegas in that one. To go back what you said, I don't think the Knicks sweep this outright. I think they ended up winning it like 4-1. I think the series does go back to New York tonight, so they're going to be tough to beat there. So I could see the Knicks going up 3-0 tonight, and then maybe San Antonio winning game 4, and then the Knicks putting them away in game 5 there. So that I think the Knicks win it in 5. I think.
All right, I'll take the Spurs tonight. Knicks to still win the series.
Okay, all right. That'll be fun to watch there. Okay, we got the emails out of the way. Alex and I will be back on Wednesday recapping whatever happened. We'll see if we get any kind of usable, tangible stuff to talk about out of OTAs the rest of this week. We'll see if there's any other contracts to talk about. But in the meantime, and we will have an emergency podcast if, let's say, Benton or most notably a Porter signs a deal. I imagine we'll have an emergency podcast for that. We'll see what happens of the timing of the Benton if anything happens there. But until Wednesday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So, until Wednesday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.